Hey guys, my name's Nova, this is Film Express, and today we're going to be talking about the new M. Night Shyamalan movie, Knock at the Cabin. Guys, I hate to put it this way, I know it's only February, but this is going to end up being one of the worst films of the year, even by the time December rolls around. In the month of January alone, I think I watched around 50 to 100 movies, and out of all of those, this might be one of the worst, along with Skinamarink and Babylon. This is a film that is so campy and so hilariously written, yet it tries to take itself so seriously throughout the runtime. I couldn't help but laugh at some of these creative decisions. It feels like every single plot point and every single character decision and every single narrative beat was written by AI, and I can't be convinced otherwise, because the stuff that happens in this movie is so surface level, like infantile second grade level writing. I couldn't believe that I was watching a film that was released with a $20 million budget, let alone by a director that has made some good movies before. And I'll say this right away, guys. I'm not the biggest fan of M. Night Shyamalan, especially his later movies. Like, he hasn't made a good film in years, but I will say that, you know, The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable were fantastic films. Signs was a decent movie, and there were some good, like, redeemable qualities in his old movies. These days, it really seems like he's so far detached from the filmmaker he once was. He's making these films that he has to self-finance, guys. That's a big thing. No studios are pitching money to make his movies. He has to self-finance. This is $20 million of his own money that's on the line. So that's a big tell in itself. I also think that it's pretty obvious that this was released in February. That's not a good sign. Any movie that's released around this window it's a failure. It just goes to show how little faith the distributor had in this film in itself. It tries to be like a thriller, a horror. It doesn't do either of those very well. It tries to touch upon like very relevant social issues. It deals with everything like a fifth grader would. Like, it's very, very elementary type stuff. You know, the dialogue was just ridiculous from the bat. To me, it's crazy because there's actually 3 writers on this, and it's based on a novel, yet they couldn't get the dialogue right. Some of it is just so campy, some of it is so hilarious, some of it tries to be serious. None of it works. To me, I was immediately like mentally checking out from this film. It's crazy because just earlier today, before I saw this movie, I watched 8.5 by Federico Fellini. It was my second time watching that movie. It hit me how much of an amazing film that is on a technical level, on a narrative level, on an experimental level, and just the impact that that film has had on like film history. It's monumental, to say the least. So watching that film, which I gave a 5 out of 5, and then coming down and watching Knock at the Cabin, which I can't even rate a 1 star. Like, this is such dog crap to me. So it's just such a big drastic drop in quality than the film that I watched earlier today. To me, I feel like the filmmakers and the studios, the distributors, should just be embarrassed. Like, to me, there's so many plot holes within this film. There's so many moments where you just think, like, I wouldn't do that. With the crazy amount of plot holes, the crazy illogical character decisions, the illogical plot in itself, it's crazy to me because you watch this whole premise kind of unfold, and even the premise is hinging on something that's super illogical that just wouldn't happen in real life. I find myself so bothered with this film just in that sense alone. The camera work, for the most part, you know, it's pretty standard, decent camera work, decent camera moves, and pretty good lighting. But none of the compositions, the framing, the actual storyboarding of this film is anything other than like amateur student film level. There's not a single shot here that serves a purpose other than kind of standard coverage. And if you guys know what standard coverage is, it's literally the bare minimum to get the scene captured on camera. I feel like this whole film is operating on a standard coverage level. There are some shots that are trying to be unique, but they serve nothing to the story. I had a lot of problems with the way Shyamalan is attempting to tell this story visually. He's not giving the cinematographer a lot to work with, and this is a pretty talented cinematographer, but every single shot here was just so lame, so weak, that the cinematographer, the most he could do was light the scene well. He didn't have anything else. He couldn't add any flair. He couldn't add any cool movements or moments that would get us in the characters' heads. It was all just very basic, like the camera's capturing what it is, it moves forward, moves back, it moves side to side, but it doesn't do anything more to elevate the scene. If I have to compare this film to anything, it's very, very similar to The Killing of a Sacred Deer by Yorgos Lanthimos. One of the most interesting, unique kind of thrillers, psychological thrillers that have come out in the past 5 to 10 years. That film is so unique, and it offers so much on like a fable level, on a thematic level, and just the way the characters are written. It's unlike anything you've ever seen before. Knock at the Cabin, on the other hand, it's like the child-proof kind of dollar store version of that, where everything is played super safe. There's none of the like thematic depth. There's none of the interesting, unique qualities that made The Killing of a Sacred Deer so great. To me, that's a big reason why this film fails, and why The Killing of the Sacred Deer has become like a cult icon at this point. What's most mind-boggling to me for M. Night Shyamalan is that he's consistently had films that don't do well at the hands of the critics. They're always critically panned. They're always as well panned at the audience level. Like, people don't like his films. Yet, all of us, even me, we're guilty of constantly going to see his films because the trailers are either so good, the premise looks interesting, or the hype that is built around the film ends up being way bigger than the film itself. For me, just seeing the reviews on Twitter, people saying this is a return to form for M. Night Shyamalan, people saying this is one of the best thrillers that they've seen in years, I was almost fooled by this. I believed it for a second. So I went to go see this film just kind of curious and cautious about the hype, but I was hoping to see a good movie. I was fully let down by how stupid this was, where there's a moment in this film near the end where there's a realization that the four villains are like the four horsemen of the apocalypse. I can't tell you how hard I laughed. It's one of the most forced, ridiculous, tacked on ideas I've seen in the past however many years. It's an idea that shouldn't have even made it to the script, let alone it got greenlit and it got put into the movie. I'm so shaken up that movies like this are getting made constantly, and between Megan and between Skinamarink, I'm like watching the death of the horror genre like right before my eyes. So it just seems ridiculous to me that I don't know, this film seems to have a lot of apologists. People on Twitter are saying it's a great movie. To me, it was dog crap. Like, this was such a bad movie. It was dog water. It was a poor excuse to get cameras rolling. It was a poor excuse to get $20 million together and to have a bunch of solid actors do very little to bring this movie to life. And yes, sure, a lot of people are saying Bautista put in a solid performance, but that's like in relation to what, you know? Like, he's doing very decent work consistently throughout his career, but this is just not the movie that should be highlighted for anybody's acting skills. This is very run-of-the-mill. It's very safe. It's a R-rated film that doesn't show any violence. Every time there's going to be a violent moment, the camera cuts away. I found that to be so ridiculous, especially when some of the weapons that these people were using were actually interesting, and we never got to see them actually put them to use in a really good way. A lot of the choreography, the action stuff, it was just super weak, super surface level, and it lacked the intensity that a story like this really requires. So with that being said, guys, that's my review of Knock at the Cabin. An absolute pointless piece of drivel, a film that I really regret watching, and a film that I really just hated. So guys, I'm really sorry if you guys like this movie. I don't mean to rain on the parade if you guys really like this movie. It's just really not for me. Every decision in this movie was just the opposite of what I look for in cinema. So I just wanted to share my thoughts. I know it's been a little while since I put any videos out, but again, that's my review, guys. Please like and subscribe. It would really help the channel a lot. Please let me know what you thought of Knock at the Cabin. Am I wrong? Did you guys like this movie? Let me know. Let's talk about it. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.